big day today. A big numbers day with Maruti Suzuki's Q2 earnings report card out. And we are looking at Maruti zooming ahead in overdrive. What are the numbers looking like, Suyash?
Great set of numbers, Kartik. Maruti Suzuki has beaten the street's expectation on all fronts. Now, the India's largest car maker has reported the highest ever quarterly sales, highest ever net sales, highest ever net profit in the September quarter. Now, profit for the quarter stood at about 3,716 crores, about 80% higher than the year ago period.
80% higher,
80%.
Okay.
And even compared to our expectations, the profit figure was about 30% higher than what we were expecting.
Okay.
We had pegged the figure to come in at around 2,920 crore or something. The profit figure for in the past quarter stood at around 3,716 crores. So even across the spectrum of the expectations, it has beaten estimates on all fronts. Talking about revenue also jumped about 24%, almost 24% on a year-on-year basis. Revenue in Q2 stood at about 37,062 crore rupees versus 29,930 crore rupees. Compared to what the street was estimating, revenue figure was about 5% higher than street's expectations of about a figure of 35,218 crore. EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization, stood at around 4,784 crore rupees, about 73% higher from the year ago period of where the figure stood at around 2768 crore rupees. Margin, on the other hand, expanded by about 360 basis points on a year-on-year basis. Margin stood at around almost 13% versus about 9.3% in the year ago period. Now, the company along with the results has said that the 80% rise in net profit was on the back of a lower
input cost,
given that the commodity prices has softened on a year-on-year basis. Non-operating incomes was also added to that the profitability figure. Its net sales has improved on a year-on-year basis, and also the cost-cutting initiatives undertaken by the company, in the last few quarters. These were the major driving factors as far as the profit beat was concerned. Revenue beat, on the other hand, was on the back of higher sales volume and better product mix. And talking about higher sales volume, in September quarter, Kartik, Maruti Suzuki sold 5,52,055 vehicles versus 5,17,395 units sold in September quarter of last year. Now, this is about a 14%
So what are we looking at? We are looking at least 2 million Maruti cars sold this year. H1, I remember, calendar year H1 closed at 1 million plus cars sold by Maruti. Now you're saying even the half-yearly Q1 and Q2 financial year half year is also already in excess of 1 million.
I guess that's the expectation. I mean, 1 million in H1, about 500,000 here. Q3 and Q4 is like overall, I think we can expect Maruti Suzuki to cross that mark of 2 million in the next quarter, given that the festive season is also about to kick in.
Absolutely. I want to speak to you about the festive season. The fact that last year's numbers, fairly high numbers, you're talking about 28,500 crore odd revenue last year, September quarter, when we were smack in the middle of festive season. This year, festive season is pushed to Q3.
Yeah.
And Q2 still has 37,000 crore rupees in revenue. I mean, Q3 is going to be bumper bonanza, isn't it?
I mean, if you look at the equation of revenue, P, price into Q, both have risen. Price across the board has risen for Maruti Suzuki, and quantity, we are seeing a 14% year-on-year jump. And mind you, this was despite not seeing that festive demand impact in September quarter, whereas we saw that rub-off effect in the year-ago period. So I think on both fronts, price as well as quantity, has contributed to that revenue beat for Maruti Suzuki.
Right. So I think the question that any retail investor and any consumer would want to ask is, you're talking about 14% volume increase, you're talking about 24% or so increase in revenue and 80% increase in profit, lower input cost efficiencies, pass it on to the consumers, isn't it?
I mean, that's something that the street, at least, I mean, not the street, but the customers of Maruti Suzuki would certainly hope for. But we are heading into the festive season, and as the trend
Discounts
has
are
been,
going to come in, pour in, little by little, trickle by
but
trickle.
that will be offset by the quantity increase that they are expecting. So pretty much Q3 is expected to be a good year. I mean, we'll hear more on that once the management starts talking
But
about.
congratulations to you. I think you've contributed to that revenue and that profitability figure. You bought the Maruti Jimny recently. I think
That's right.
Q3, if I'm not mistaken, you bought it only this year. But I think you will definitely add to the Q3. Interesting data point emerging that the Jimny is selling in half the numbers against its competitor Mahindra Thar.
I mean, I think initially the overall response, at least being a Jimny owner, one thing that I've noticed is that it's a clear head turner. Wherever I stop, people often come to me and ask, they have typically have 3 questions. How is it compared to Thar?
Kitna deti hai? Is that part of the question?
That is definitely a part of the question. I mean, the more discerning of the audience is asking that question. But pretty much the line of thought over there is ki at least it looks better than Thar. It's smaller than Thar. It's more practical than Thar, and price it's very competitive. I think it's priced lower than Thar. So overall, it's a more practical car in that segment where we only have 3 cars. I think it's Ford's Gurkha, we have Thar, and we have Jimny now.
Right. So just a disclaimer, Suyash is not talking up the stock of Maruti. I think this is just friendly banter on account of Maruti results coming out. But talk to us, Suyash, about how the stock has performed in light of the Q2 earnings, massive earnings, and help us draw a comparison with the peers, Tata Motors, Mahindra and Mahindra, etc.
For sure, Kartik. So Maruti Suzuki was trading higher. The expectation was that results will be good this time around, and the guidance also will indicate what sort of a festive demand we can expect going into Q3.
Okay.
So the stock was up about 2% before the results came out. It went on to surge as much as 4% to hit in the intraday trade post results to hit a record high of 10,845. Now, after that initial exuberance, the stock corrected and ended about 1% higher at 10,535 levels. Now, in comparison to its peers, Tata Motors and Mahindra, as you can see on the screen, on a 1-month basis, Maruti is up about 0.44%, whereas Tata Motors is up about 1%. Mahindra, on the other hand, has taken a beating, it's down about 5% or so. On a 6-month basis, it has underperformed Tata Motors but has outperformed Mahindra. Yeah. Mahindra was up about 22 to 23%. Maruti Suzuki, on the other hand, was up about 25%, and Tata Motors gave returns of about 30%.
So just help me understand, looking at this chart, it's interesting data. My assumption would be that Tata Motors stock has given over a 1-year period, over a 6-month period, over a 1-month period better returns because of its head start in the EV space, as opposed to Mahindra and Mahindra, which is still largely a diesel-oriented, diesel engine, powertrain-driven SUVs, and Maruti Suzuki at the cusp of petrol and hybrid. Yeah. So, looking at just pure that one single data point, it seems that the returns right now are directly linked with how future-ready an organization is.
Definitely. And also, I was also looking at the valuations, the PE, the price to earning multiples. I think Maruti is relatively overpriced over there. The PE multiple on Maruti currently, the 12-month forward PE is at around 33. Okay. Whereas for Tata Motors, even after the run-up that we are seeing, I think 54% jump in a 1-year basis, the PE stands at around 21. Mahindra is trading at a discount to both Tata Motors and Maruti Suzuki. It has a PE, 12-month forward PE of about 17.5. So Maruti Suzuki, yes, it is slightly expensive. Also, we have not really heard about what it's going to do as far as its EV portfolio is concerned. I think there is
there's a vision 2025, FY25, which will kickstart 1st April next year, 2024. So it does have plans to introduce at least 2 EV variants in FY25 and then build on that right up until FY30.
But I guess, I mean, as investors, investors in Maruti Suzuki, you would want more because it's India's largest car maker. Just 2 EV vehicles, how many does Tata Motors has? It has, spread its EV portfolio from affordable segment to premium segment. I think Tigor is the cheapest EV that's available, whereas Nexon is about 17 to 20 lakh rupees.
That's right.
So a good portfolio there, but Tata, Maruti Suzuki, of course, by the next year we could have or we should have 2 two EVs from them, but I think the street is also expecting more from Maruti Suzuki as far as that EV portfolio is
Right.
concerned.
Since we are talking EV, since we are talking auto, not specifically auto stocks, but my question could eventually get there as well. Is that a new entrant? JSW chairman Sajjan Jindal, now the very, very obvious front runner in the race to pick up stake in MG Motors. MG Motors has a great EV portfolio. So, is it going to eat into the share, not just the market share, into the share price share and the PEs of these existing players? How do you see the JSW story going ahead from here?
That could definitely eat away from the share, but if you look at the the entire market of the auto market, at least in the passenger vehicle segment, Maruti Suzuki has slowly and steadily been losing the market share to Tata Motors, to Mahindra & Mahindra. I mean, look back 10 years ago, Mahindra & Mahindra and Tata Motors did not really have a presence on Indian roads. In the last 10 years, they have come out with a bouquet of cars which are actively, competing with those foreign brands such as the likes of Hyundai, such as the likes of your Maruti Suzuki and other foreign players. So I think definitely, but it will hurt, I think, Tata Motors more if they are planning to, come out with their own set of EV vehicles. Maruti Suzuki, on the other hand, it's losing the market share very steadily, but I mean, once it comes out with the EV portfolio and it's a preferred choice for the middle class, Maruti Suzuki is a brand that has been around for the longest of time. So I think Maruti Suzuki should do well. I was also looking at the brokerage calls, by the way, on Maruti Suzuki.
Sure.
I mean, the last brokerage call came from Motilal Oswal in September.
Okay.
Motilal Oswal has a buy call on the stock and a target price of 11,900 rupees, which implies an upside of about 13% from today's closing.
You're saying it's already overpriced. The PE ratio suggests that the stock is already overpriced, and Motilal Oswal giving almost a 12,000 rupee target price, 11,900.
So probably they are buying into more that future vision that we were just talking about, the EV pack. Even KR Choksey expects the stock to, has a target price of about 11,170. It too has a buy call on the stock. So it also expects about a 6% upside from current levels. HDFC Securities also has a buy call on the stock. It has a target price of about 10,920, implying an upside of about 3.5% from current levels, whereas ICICI Securities has an accumulated rating on Maruti Suzuki with a target price of 10,923, same 3.5% upside from here on.
Excellent, super interesting numbers there. Well,